In this podcast episode, Chris engages in a deep and wide-ranging conversation with David Deida, a renowned author and teacher focused on masculinity, consciousness, and intimate relationships. This interview, David's first in a decade, explores the concept of the man of zero, a stage beyond the superior man, addressing themes including motivation, purpose, the evolution of masculine essence, the psychology of emptiness, deeper intimacy in sex, integration of patterns, and the cultural shifts affecting men and women today. David introduces the idea of the man of zero as someone who has lost the typical motivating drives that define much of a man's life. This phase is characterized not by apathy, but by a deep sense of presence and stillness, where the usual stress-driven ambition and striving dissolve. Unlike the superior man, who is motivated by purpose often related to service or contribution, the man of zero rests in a state beyond personal ambition. This condition is less of a linear progression and more a cycle. Men may move between phases depending on life circumstances. The transition involves embracing stillness fully, not as a void to be feared, but as a portal to authenticity and freedom. A key concern discussed is the confusion between the man of zero state and clinical depression. David clarifies that while clinical depression involves biochemical imbalances and collapse, the man of zero experiences conscious being without contraction or mental turmoil. The presence in this state is characterized by witnessing thoughts as transient phenomena rather than being entangled in them. Chris highlights the challenge individuals face in recognizing this as an evolution rather than a regression, and discusses ways to cultivate awareness of one's deeper self in moments of lost drive, encouraging resting as pure being without resistance. As men enter the man of zero phase, past tensions, emotional contractions, and even ancestral traumas can surface powerfully. These unresolved tensions, sometimes experienced as bodily constrictions, especially around the solar plexus, come to awareness for release and integration. David underscores the necessity of patience and compassion during this unfolding, because such deep patterns take time, sometimes years, to fully dissolve. This purification is a critical aspect of moving through stillness without collapsing into dysfunction. The conversation explores how outward effectiveness might shift during this phase. While the intensity of drive lessens, the skills and effectiveness built over time remain intact. The shift is more a change in motivation rather than ability. A man in this phase is less entangled in ego-driven striving, but paradoxically may perform tasks with greater skill and presence because he is less wound up in internal conflict. David and Chris reflect on why traditional metrics of success eventually feel hollow. Achievements that once promised fulfillment reveal the unchanged nature of being beneath accomplishments. The awareness of this emptiness often emerges after significant success, but growing numbers of younger men reach it earlier, sometimes through psychedelic experiences that give them an unintegrated glimpse of infinity. This leads to the topic of spiritual bypass, where transcendent experiences aren't followed by meaningful integration, leaving individuals superficially transformed. David articulates a core distinction between masculine and feminine essences, masculine as unchanging stillness or emptiness, feminine as fullness and flow. This polarity creates dynamic sexual attraction. As men rest deeper into zero, conventional sexual desires tied to conditionings, such as fantasies and visual stimuli, wane. Instead, they move toward deeper intimacy rooted in presence, love, and mutual awareness. Sex at zero becomes less about doing and more about connecting through awareness and feeling, where holding space and being completely present can be profoundly impactful sexually. The discussion touches on societal norms around male sexuality, which often focus on physicality and conquest, making emotional intimacy a difficult subject for men. The masculine identification with emptiness can render emotions unfamiliar or unwelcome. Women's archetypes more readily embrace intimacy and emotional communication, leading to misunderstandings in relationships. David emphasizes that genuine intimacy arises from feeling love and awareness shared mutually, which is accessible when men learn to rest in their being rather than push with ego-driven wants. For men not yet in the man of zero phase, David recommends practices that shift focus away from self-centered sensation toward genuinely perceiving and resonating with a partner's body, breath, and emotional flow. This includes synchronized breathing and expanding attention beyond personal arousal to experience a stronger energetic connection. Such practices cultivate intimacy beyond physical mechanics, encouraging men to discover love as mutual awareness and deeper connection. The episode addresses the ongoing process of integrating awareness into lived experience. Even as one rests in deeper being, existing psychological, emotional, and behavioral patterns persist. These may manifest as unintentional misalignments like lies or hurtful actions, highlighting the gap between insight and full integration. David stresses that full integration is rare and requires time, therapy, compassion, and sometimes structural supports to prevent harm, emphasizing the importance of patience with oneself and others during this long process. Discipline remains necessary, but its nature changes after purpose-driven motivation diminishes. Rather than discipline serving ego or external goals, it becomes a natural maintenance of the body-mind, such as exercise or learning, done effortlessly and without internal pressure. This new form of discipline is aligned with being rather than doing, where action arises spontaneously and is not forced or strained. David observes that as women increasingly assume societal and leadership roles historically occupied by men, men are being called to discover deeper reasons for their existence that transcend external achievement or dominance. The masculine essence evolves toward embodying presence, receptivity, and deep stability, a foundation that supports both self and others. This shift will redefine masculine identity and roles in contemporary culture and relationships. David shares reflections on his long explorations spanning multiple disciplines, including artificial intelligence, neuroscience, yoga, and spirituality, and how these have united around the central question of understanding being and reality. His career has evolved naturally through distinct phases rather than as a planned progression, exemplifying surrender to inner truth over external expectation. He recounts living simply on a Hawaiian beach before his writing career began, illustrating his willingness to let go of old phases when they become obsolete. Chris shares his own experience of deep emotional work with a retreat led by Joe Hudson, highlighting the intense physical and emotional sensations felt as a wet rag twisting from throat to solar plexus that arise when underlying misalignments and contractions surface. This metaphor echoes David's descriptions of bodily constraints, signaling inauthentic living. Both agree this sensitivity, while painful, provides a necessary feedback mechanism to guide men back toward truthful, integrated living. David emphasizes two pivotal resources for personal growth: long-term intimate partnerships and relationship with a teacher. The intimate relationship acts as a mirror that reveals hidden contractions and unconscious patterns and provides love-based support for transformation. Similarly, skilled teachers offer ongoing reflections that challenge blind spots, guiding deeper self-awareness and maturation more effectively than solitary practices or techniques alone. The core of masculine essence, as David views it, lies in identifying with emptiness, timelessness, and presence rather than with growth or change. This contrasts with the feminine principle, which is oriented toward fullness, radiance, and movement. Recognizing and embodying this emptiness grants men a stable frame that can hold space for others, be that in intimate relationships or broader cultural roles. Both Chris and David appreciate the humility and commitment required to live authentically and explore these profound themes. The dialogue acknowledges that evolving into these deeper states of being is neither linear nor guaranteed, and that ongoing curiosity and surrender to truth remain essential throughout life's varied phases. The podcast itself serves as one expression of this continuing search for meaning and understanding.